The gavel crashed against the wooden block with a loud crack that seemed to ring through the hushed courtroom. And in a moment, all eyes were on Meri Brown. She wasn't shaking, she wasn't shrinking, and she wasn't the quiet version of herself that fans had become accustomed to witnessing. No, she stood tall, jaw set, her eyes blazing directly at Kody, who suddenly appeared more like a trapped man with no exit in sight. Behind closed doors and on television sets, their drama had unfolded for years. But today, under the harsh fluorescent lighting of the courthouse, the truth was no longer one he could spin or avoid. It was a reckoning. Meri's voice cut through the air, sharp and deliberate. Your Honor, the lies, the manipulation, the financial deceit, it ends today. And the room seemed to lean forward, hanging on her words, while Kody shifted uncomfortably, his hands gripping the edge of the defense table. Behind him, Robyn dabbed her eyes with a tissue, whispering to herself, the weight of the moment pressing down like a storm about to break. This wasn't a case of forms or real estate. This was a case of betrayal, of dignity, of years of being silenced. The tension hung in the air, and yet, this was only the beginning. And the frightening question here is, how far will Meri take it, and what little secret is she about to reveal that can finally destroy Kody for good? Stay tuned, because what is to follow will leave you gasping. The room was packed, not just with lawyers and clerks, but with onlookers who had followed the family's story for over a decade. Some whispered, others gasped softly every time Meri's voice rose. To them, this wasn't just a legal battle. This was history unfolding. Kody tried to raise his head, attempting that old swagger he was famous for on TLC, but his voice cracked when he spoke. This is exaggerated, Your Honor, Meri's twisting. But the judge cut him off, raising a stern hand. Mr. Brown, you'll have your turn. The ensuing silence was diabolical. Everyone could witness Kody perspiring. His golden locks that used to be his signature were limp under the unforgiving light, face reddening. The man who previously dominated 4 wives was now cornered. If you've ever wondered what it looks like when power finally shifts, when silence finally breaks, this is that moment. Don't look away now, because the real shock hasn't even landed yet. Robyn sat mere feet behind Kody, with her hands wrapped so tightly around one another that her knuckles whitened. Tears flowed freely, but this time to no avail. The judge's gaze flashed toward her momentarily, as if not perturbed by the show. Christine and Janelle weren't in the court in body, but their words, their declarations from previous filings, hung in the air like spirits. Everyone understood the tide had turned against Kody. Meri went on, her voice unwavering, each sentence falling like a hammer blow. He stole money that wasn't his. He made promises he never had any intention of keeping. And when he was caught, he manipulated everyone he knew, me included, to save face. Her words were not accusations, they were years of anguish honed into a weapon. A murmur rippled through the room. Kody's lawyer shuffled papers nervously, clearly caught off guard by the precision of Meri's attack. Even the judge leaned forward, pen tapping lightly against the bench, absorbing every word. This is where it gets dangerous, because Meri isn't just speaking for herself anymore. She's speaking for every wound, every betrayal, and every truth the audience has begged to hear for years. And then the second occurred that left everyone paralyzed. Meri opened a folder, pulled out a stack of documents, and slapped them onto the desk with calculated force. The deafening sound of paper on wood rang out more loudly than anticipated. And Kody's head jerked up, his eyes wide. Exhibit A, Your Honor, Meri continued, her tone steady but with a subtle blaze of anger. Bank statements, withdrawals, transfers, money for family needs, diverted somewhere else. He'll claim it's all harmless, but the figures don't lie. Gasps filled the room. Even Robyn's crying halted for a brief moment as she gazed at the documents. Kody's mouth opened, but nothing was said. The previously impenetrable patriarch was now left speechless, caught up in icy, undeniable facts. The judge pushed his glasses back up to his eyes, perusing the documents, his face growing tighter, and then he glared at Kody. Mr. Brown, explain this. The silence was oppressive. Kody had opened his mouth to speak once, then again, but the words seemed to strangle him. His chest heaved with short breaths. He glanced at Robyn, seeking support, but she too was collapsing, her body shaking, mascara smearing as she hid her face in her hands. And here's the moment when everything turns around. The truth isn't a rumor anymore. It's proof in front of us, and Kody's empire is coming down in front of our eyes. Somewhere in the rear of the courtroom, someone nervously coughed, but otherwise the room was absolutely silent. Meri straightened up, as if the burden of years had been lifted from her. She wasn't finished yet, not by a long shot, but in that moment everyone knew, this war had turned. Kody crouched forward, his voice finally bursting loose, but it was raw, urgent. It's not what it seems, but nobody looked convinced. Not the onlookers, not the judge, not even Robyn. Meri crossed her arms, gazing hard at him, and packed one last punch for the first round. Years you said to the world you were a man of faith, a man of family. But here today, we'll reveal who you really are. The gavel came down again, and the judge's voice rang out. We will take a short break before proceeding. But the unease didn't dissipate. On the contrary, it grew tighter, the air heavy with expectation of what was yet to come. For here's the reality, what Meri has exposed is merely the tip of the iceberg, and the actual shock, the one which will reduce Robyn to pieces and Kody to the corner, hasn't even materialized yet. And now I'm going to leave you with this. If you were sitting in that courtroom, observing Kody sweating and Robyn collapsing, would you be on Meri's side of the fight for truth? Or would you still find yourself believing Kody's defense? Leave your thoughts in the comments, because this is just the beginning, and you won't believe what's coming next. The cameras weren't rolling, the editors at TLC weren't cutting to commercial, and the cheery music to buffer the blow wasn't there. This was hard-hitting, unvarnished reality, and it started with a silence so profound you could hear the judge's chair creaking as he leaned forward. Meri, the wife who had once been discarded and kept in the wings, was now the force that dominated the room. Her voice didn't simply speak. It thundered, it echoed, it made sure that no one averted their eyes. For years I was silenced. For years I was ignored. But today, Your Honor, I'm not speaking only for myself. I'm speaking for every broken promise, every stolen dollar, every shattered dream. The crowd of witnesses remained seated, the full force of her words bearing down on their chests. Kody's head nodded, his eyes frantically flicking between his attorney and the pile of papers Meri had laid out before him. Robyn gripped the tissue in her hand, so hard it was almost ripped. This was not the meek Meri viewers had watched endure catfishing scandals, betrayal, and loneliness on screen. This was a woman who had nothing left to lose, a woman who had been shamed publicly and now came with weapons, and those weapons were the truth that cut sharper than any knife. This is the instant you've been waiting for in every tale, when the one who got discarded finally turns the tables. Don't blink, because the blow you're about to see is only the beginning. The judge gestured for her to proceed. Meri's heels clicked against the courtroom floor as she moved toward the stand, carrying with her a binder, so thick it looked like it had been built from years of pain. Each page turned was another wound reopened, another betrayal recorded. She spoke of finances, of promises made in hushed conversations behind closed doors, of funds meant for the family suddenly disappearing without explanation. Kody shifted, his jaw clenching in tight anger, attempting to keep his cool. But his hands betrayed him. They tumbled, fingers drumming against the smooth table, revealing nerves he couldn't keep under wraps. His lawyer scribbled down notes, whispering wildly, but Kody didn't hear her. He was focused on Meri, the woman he once believed would never retaliate. Meri's voice broke for one moment, and it wasn't weakness, it was strength. It was the voice of a person bearing the burden of years, and at last laying it in the open. Your Honor, this wasn't merely about money. This was about control. This was about image. Behind the cameras he was the loving husband. But when the cameras stopped rolling, we were pawns, shut up and discarded. A gasp echoed from the back of the courtroom. A person whispered Meri's name under their breath, as if she was a symbol in that instant. No longer a woman, but a voice for all who had been silent. Do you ever see somebody change before your very eyes? Victim to war, that's what's occurring here. And you can't look away. Robyn's wails became more audible. Her shoulders heaved as she turned her face aside from the judge, mortified, frightened, maybe even aware that the kingdom she and Kody created together was breaking apart in real time. The streaked mascara down her cheeks wasn't merely makeup streaming. It was the body's physical manifestation of fear. Kody finally attempted to interrupt, his voice begging, Your Honor, this is personal business. This does not need to be in a courtroom. But the judge was resolute. Mr. Brown, it's here because she brought it here. And now you will be held accountable to it. That one sentence turned the power completely around. Kody's power, once absolute, now rested in the hands of an unyielding judge who was not moved by charm or justification. Meri relaxed a fraction, letting the silence extend. It was as if she wanted the gravity of his falling reputation to take hold before she went on. Then, with a deep breath, she spoke the line that even made the stenographer look up from her keys. You said you loved us all equally, but what you actually loved more than any of us was power. The courtroom was filled with whispers. Robyn buried her face further, and Kody slammed his hand on the table. His voice heightened. That's a lie. That's not who I am. But even as they hung in the air, they sounded fake. Nobody believed him. Not anymore. This is where it all changes. The audience isn't wondering whether or not Meri's in the right. They're curious about what else she's going to reveal. And let me tell you, it's bigger than you imagine. The judge rapped his gavel once for silence, but tension lingered. Glances zipped back and forth between Meri and Kody like a game of tennis where life and death were on the line. Next was the first dagger of proof. Meri brought out a piece of handwritten paper with a signature years old. A vow from Kody for family money. She read it slowly, her voice steady. I will make sure that money made is divided up equally among all children and wives. Signed, Kody Brown. The words fell like grenades. Robyn's hands trembled violently. Kody's face went pale. And for the first time in years, he was at a loss for words. Meri set down the paper and let silence do the rest. The judge leaned forward, eyes piercing. Mr. Brown, is this your signature, correct? Kody stuttered. It's complicated. It's a yes or no question. The pause that followed spoke volumes to everyone. And in that pause, Meri's lips curled ever so slightly. Not a smile of cruelty, but of relief, of vindication. She wasn't done, but she had just drawn first blood. And the wound was deep. Picture yourself in that seat, understanding the walls closing in, and the past catching up at last. That's where Kody finds himself sitting today. And the cracks in his armor are growing more pronounced. The gavel came down again, the judge demanding order. But there wasn't any order anymore. The scales had tipped, the room had been altered, and the trial was just starting. As the session came to a close, Meri slowly closed her binder, almost as if she was saying this is only the beginning. And then she gave one final swing during the break, her gaze fixed on Kody. You can deny me, you can embarrass me, but you cannot get away from the truth. Today the truth prevails. The judge declared recess, but nobody budged. Spectators mouthed words, reporters made notes, and Kody sat statue still, his kingdom shaking at its foundation. Robyn's tears slowed to muted sobs. Her body slumped forward in defeat. Meri collected her papers with a calmness, her expression set in determination. The battle wasn't lost. It was only just beginning. The courtroom was quiet after recess, but the quiet was misleading. It wasn't calm. It was tension. A storm brewing on the horizon. As individuals returned to their seats, there were whispers. They weren't whispers of intrigue anymore. They were whispers of absolute sureness. Something larger was brewing, and it was going to blow up in their faces. The judge came back, straightening his robe, his gaze keen. Kody shifted uncomfortably, once proud, but now slumped. Meri, however, seemed to have only come back stronger from the break. She was no longer that wife who hovered in the background. She was the bringer of truth, and the audience could sense it emanating from her like warmth. Court is in session, the judge declared, his deep voice commanding. And with that, the next installment of this struggle was underway. Here's the hook. If you thought session 1 was explosive, wait till you see what's coming. Because what Meri is about to share isn't paper trails or promises, it's secrets. Secrets that bite deeper than money. Secrets that will have Robyn crying in shock, and Kody struggling to maintain the very last thread of his reputation. Meri stood up once more, her binder in hand, but this time her face was different. It wasn't determination alone, it was fury. The years of deceit, the nights spent alone, the humiliation in public, all of those honed her tone as she spoke to the court. Your Honor, the money deceptions were just half of it. But it doesn't stop there. Because what Kody wanted to conceal, what he wanted to deceive, was more than figures. It went into trust, into loyalty, into love. The room erupted into gasps. Once more the tension palpable. Even the bailiff moved slightly, as if preparing for impact. Kody's lawyer scrambled to object, but the judge waved him off. "She may proceed," he said firmly, his gaze fixed on Meri. "And here's the moment you've been waiting for. The moment where secrets move from whispers to weapons. Stay with me, because once this begins, there's no turning back." Meri opened the next folder. Inside were emails, text messages, and written notes, evidence of private conversations Kody had kept hidden from the other wives. She began to read them aloud, her voice steady. "Robyn, don't worry. I'll always prioritize you. The others can complain, but you're my safe place." Robyn's sobs pierced the quiet immediately. She shook her head, mouthing no no, as if in denial of what she was hearing. But the proof was there, black marks on white paper, uncontestable. Meri went on, her voice edged like steel. "He told us one thing, the rest of them, about being fair, about being equal. But here in private, he promised something quite different." The courtroom gasped. The very basis of Kody's public persona, that he attempted to love all the wives equally, was disintegrating at his own hands. Kody pounded his hand on the table, yelling, "This is taken out of context. This was private, personal." The judge's gavel came crashing down. "Order in the court. You will not interrupt. This is the climax, when denial won't do anymore, when the truth is put in black and white, and spoken out loud, and the person at the center of it all has no place to hide." The audience leaned in, their heads shaking, their mouths whispering angrily. Everyone knew it. This wasn't about money any longer. This was about betrayal, reaching into the very core of the family. Robyn buried her face, her tears unrestrained. The woman who had been depicted as the shielded one, the beloved one, was now seeing the spotlight shift against her. Her cries filled the room, and though she wept for pity, the judge did not falter. Meri hesitated, allowing silence to build. Next, she extracted a last page, a declaration produced years earlier in a family feud, signed by Christine and Janelle, both swearing that they felt left out, overlooked, and economically disempowered. Their testimony existed as the unseen witnesses in the room, standing alongside Meri. The weight was too much for Kody to bear. He balled his fists, his lips quivering as he attempted to create a defense. But the papers did louder than any "Did you ever see a man come apart before your very eyes? That's what is occurring right now, and it is impossible not to look away." Robyn finally spoke, through tears. "Kody, is it true? Did you truly vow me these things?" Her voice broke like glass, brittle and shattered. The courtroom turned to witness the fall of not only a man, but of a marriage disintegrating in the brightest of lights. Kody looked at her, his eyes wide, but his words faltered out. "I just wanted to keep. I had to say things. I had to." But Robyn shook her head hard. "You said I was special. You said." Her words trailed off in tears. And now it wasn't just Meri fighting Kody. It was Robyn crumbling under the same favoritism that shielded her before. The judge's gaze roamed the courtroom, obviously not impressed. "Mr. Brown, I see a pattern of deception, and what I hear are promises broken." Proof. Kody slumped. The great patriarch once feared by his family now resembled a beaten man. Meri's eyes didn't yield. If anything, they seemed to harden. She was not here for sympathy. She was here for justice. And this is only the start. Because the proof Meri keeps hidden, the clincher she's reserving, hasn't even been mentioned yet. What she reveals next will determine everything. The tension was strangling as the judge ordered yet another short recess. The room exploded in whispers, reporters frantically writing, cameras outside flashing through the courthouse's tall windows. Kody hid his face in his hands, while Robyn shook, mascara smeared, her body caving inward. Meri, however, sat serenely, her papers piled in neat order before her, her gaze never wavering from Kody. She had an idea what was next, and finally so did he. For what she had presented up till then, the money, the favoritism, the betrayal was only the groundwork. The blow that would destroy what was left of Kody's alibi was yet to come. And the question now is, when the last shred of evidence falls, will Kody stand up and fight, or will he finally crack? The gavel fell once more, and the air in the courtroom seemed heavy as if the walls themselves were waiting with bated breath. Everyone believed that they'd already witnessed the worst during session 2. The money betrayal, the favoritism, the tears of Robyn. But what was to follow made those look like an introduction.
This was no longer a matter of money or broken vows. It was a matter of trust, broken at its deepest, of secrets raw enough to destroy not only a marriage, but the very face of a man who had once stood as the head of a family. Here's your hook. If you thought Kody couldn't get any lower, you'd be wrong.
What Meri is about to go on record saying is so intimate, so heartbreaking, it will leave even Robyn winded. Stay tuned, because this is the storm you've been waiting for. Meri slowly got up from her chair, as if relishing the gravity of the silence. The binder remained on the table, but this time she did not even require it. Her hands did not shake, her voice honed to an edge. She sat face to face with Kody, her eyes steel. You've lied about money, you've lied about love. But today, Kody, we discuss family, about the children you did not care for while you played favorites. The words cut through the courtroom like a knife. Gasps erupted again, this time louder, rawer. Even the judge leaned back slightly, bracing for what was to follow. Kody's mouth fell open, stunned. That's not fair, he began. But Meri's hand shot up, silencing him before the judge even had to. No. What's not fair is the way you informed Gabriel and Garrison that they didn't count. The way you dismissed Truly when she was most in need of you. The way you left your own kids while lavishing attention on others. That's what's not fair. Robyn's crying ceased for an instant, her frame hardening as if even she had not anticipated this. Her gaze swept to Kody, hoping to find denial, comfort. But there was none. This is the center of the hurricane. Not riches, not possession, but the very ties of blood and affection, now exposed for the world to criticize. The crowd of onlookers was no longer merely witness, they were experienced. Heads rocked in shock, some eyes welled up with tears, as if the hurt of abused children struck a chord too raw to ignore. Meri's voice trembled, but she didn't falter. Do you recall when Truly got ill? When the physicians told us she may not survive if she didn't receive treatment right away? Do you recall, Kody, where you were? You weren't present. You were with Robyn. You were with her while our daughter fought for life. Robyn's lips parted, quivering as tears streamed once more. Kody, tell me that's not true, she breathed. But the silence which ensued was oppressive. Cornered, Kody glistened with sweat on his brow. He sought to speak, to justify, but nothing would emerge. The truth had already filled the air, heavy and irrevocable. And here's the turning point. When silence speaks louder than denial ever could, that's when even the people who know him best start to question. The judge's brow furrowed. Mr. Brown, is this true? Were you not present during your child's medical crisis? Kody's voice cracked. I had responsibilities. Respond to the question, the judge insisted sternly. Kody's lips trembled. Yes, I wasn't there. The gasp that burst forth this time was not surprise, but disgust. Journalists wrote feverishly. Onlookers shook their heads, and Robyn slumped into her chair, her weeping beyond control. Meri's eyes shone with tears, but they were not tears of vulnerability. They were tears of utter truth being told at last. You left your own child, Kody, and that's what you are. The impact of her words flattened the air, and Kody was collapsed, shattered before them all. Have you ever witnessed a man nude, his dignity stripped, his facade ripped from his face? That is what we see in this courtroom today. And it gets darker. Through tears, Robyn whispered, you promised us that you would guard the family. You promised. Her words broke apart in the tissue she held. Kody pulled back from her, pleading, I did it for us, Robyn. But shook her head, pulling free. For the first time, even Robyn, his staunchest defender, seemed no longer to believe him. Meri withdrew from the stand, allowing the silence to choke him. She had plenty more. Everyone could see that. The binder still closed on the table was evidence of it. But for the time being, she allowed the damage to hang. Let Kody squirm in the ruins of his own confessions. The judge eventually shattered the silence. This court will take a 10-minute recess. When we come back, we'll proceed with Mrs. Brown's evidence. But the recess did not loosen the tension. It only amplified it. The courtroom erupted in a hum of voices, the crowd stunned by what they'd just heard. Outside, cameras popped as news of the stunning testimony spread. Inside, Kody slumped forward in his chair, covering his face with his hands, as Robyn sobbed wildly beside him. Meri, though, sat upright, her shoulders back. For the first time in years, she wasn't bearing the shame, she was bearing the truth. And it was Kody who was weighed down with exposure. And the thing is, if you think this was the peak, you're wrong. because the binder still harbors the most profound betrayal of all. And once exposed, there will be no turning back. Time was called by the bailiff, and individuals shifted back into their seats. The judge returned, and the quiet came back, more oppressive than ever. Everyone watched as Meri rose, binder under her arm. She set it down on the stand carefully, her fingers resting on the cover. Then, after a deep breath, she opened it. The pages within weren't merely numbers or scribbled notes this time. They were letters, witness statements, confessions from those who had lived in Kody's shadow for so many years. The first was Janelle's. In shaking script it said, "Kody's words cut deeper than silence. He once told me my children would never be as important to him as Robyn's. That hurt me to the core." The courtroom grew silent once more, the tension thick with incredulity. Robyn gasped visibly, her hands over her heart, her sobs resumed. He said that, she breathed. Kody covered his face with his hands, not able to bear anyone's gaze. This is where it all falls apart, where the web of deceit unravels under the weight of evidence too intimate to refute. Meri wasn't done. She read Christine's letter second, her voice trembling. "I left because I couldn't watch him shatter our children's hearts. He chose Robyn, over and over again, no matter what the price." The words fell like rocks onto Kody's back, suffocating whatever remaining fight he had. Robyn wept so hard that her body shook the room, but even the sympathizers could see, the truth was inescapable. The judge's face darkened with every utterance. Disappointment was no longer all this was, it had turned to condemnation. Meri closed the binder slowly, her eyes never leaving Kody. "Your Honor, I've shown the finances, I've shown the favoritism, but now, I've shown what it costs. The hearts of children, the dignity of women, the truth of a family destroyed." The judge nodded gravely, his gavel resting heavy in his hand. "We'll resume testimony in the next session, but know this, Mr. Brown, your actions are under a microscope now." Kody's shoulders sagged further. The image of defeat, the final sealed envelope in Meri's binder, has not yet been opened. What's inside it will shake this courtroom beyond repair. And in session 4, that secret comes out. The courtroom audience leaned forward, their breaths light, as if involuntarily tensing for something much more than they had already seen. The judge had come back, the gavel held high, and Meri poised with binder in hand. But this time there was more to it. A sealed envelope sitting at the very top of her documents, its worn edges from handling, its heaviness more metaphorical than tangible. This was the item that everyone had been anticipating. "This is your hook." The envelope sealed doesn't hold just words. It holds the type of truth that destroys reputations, shatters illusions, and rewrites everything you believed you knew about this family. And once Meri opens it, there's no turning back. Stick with me, because what you are about to hear is the very core of this courtroom battle. The judge pushed his glasses down his nose, his tone low but firm. "Mrs. Brown, you may continue." Meri stood slowly, as if with ceremony, as if even she was aware of the gravity of the situation. Her gaze cleared the room, lingering for a moment on Kody, whose face had paled to a ghastly shade, beads of sweat glistening beneath the unforgiving lights. Robyn's sobs had been reduced to ragged breaths, her body shuddering with expectation of what lay ahead. With a careful hand, Meri opened the seal. The tear resonated within the still courtroom like thunder rumbling over a valley. She withdrew some folded sheets, scanned them quickly, then looked up. "Your Honor?" she started, her voice calm. "This is the evidence Kody never thought would come to light. These are the statements of a man who witnessed everything, statements he struggled to conceal." The room became deathly silent. "This is the knife, ready to cut deepest, the voice in the past which Kody cannot silence." Meri opened the first page and started reading. "I, Leon Brown, make this statement not as a child seeking sympathy, but as an adult who lived the reality behind closed doors. My father was not the man the cameras showed him. He was a man who played favorites, who played on loyalty, who made us feel like we didn't exist when we needed him most." The words struck Kody like a punch. His lips trembled, his fingers clutching the table until his knuckles were white. Robyn gasped in shock, her hand shooting to her mouth. "Oh my God," she breathed, her voice muffled through shaking fingers. Meri's voice didn't shake. She continued to read. "There were times I pleaded with him for attention, times I implored him to listen. But unless Robyn was present, unless it benefited his reputation, he didn't care. And when I accused him, he said love was conditional. Conditional on loyalty. Conditional on silence. The courtroom was so quiet that glass seemed like it could crack on the sound. The judge's face went hard, his pen hovering above the note he was writing as he took in the weight of the words. This is the truth that can't be unheard. A child's testimony born from living in favoritisms and neglect's shadows. Kody shook his head violently, cracking his voice. This is lies. My child doesn't understand. But the judge banged the gavel down. Mr. Brown, you will not offend sworn testimony. The crack of the gavel shut him up at once. Robyn's wails burst forth once more, but differently this time. Leaden, fractured. Her mascara-rimmed face swiveled toward Kody, eyes wide with horror. You said they hated you. You said they were lying to me. Kody reached out to her, his voice urgent. Robyn, please. But she jerked away, shaking her head, as if the letters on paper had sliced through the fabric of years of rationalization. Meri went on, her voice edged by hurt but calm by determination. The words continue. Your Honor. They talk of fear, of rejection, of silent nights rather than love. They talk of what happens when one man's ego supersedes the needs of an entire family. Her hand shook a little as she flipped the page, but never her eyes. The courtroom hung in the balance, time itself slowing under the burden of the discovery. Did you ever see the precise instant when a man knows his empire is falling apart? This is it, here and now. The judge leaned closer, his forehead creased. Mrs. Brown, is that all? Meri nodded. Yes, Your Honor. The testimony ends on a statement that cannot be overlooked. She gulped hard, then read the final words. If there is justice on this earth, let it be told. Kody Brown loved control more than he loved love. Hid behind the veil of family until he's told the truth out loud. Today I shatter that silence. The courtroom exploded. Gasps and murmurs, even a muffled cry from the back pews. Reporters wrote furiously, cameras outside probably already buzzing with the newsbreak. Kody rested his head in his hands, his face hidden, shoulders heaving with the burden of revelation. Robyn, her body shuddering, turned away from him entirely, as if she could no longer stand to see him. The judge rapped his gavel again, quieting the pandemonium. His voice was icy, commanding, unyielding. This court recognizes the seriousness of this testimony, and it shall bear heavily in what is to follow. Meri folded the papers with precision, her expression impassive. She wasn't victorious, she wasn't smiling, she was just determined. Years of silence were finally shattered, and the resonations of that reality filled every space of the room. And here's the reality. Once words such as these are uttered, they can never be withdrawn. The harm is irreparable, and the consequence will be catastrophic. The judge ordered another brief recess, but no one got up. The onlookers remained seated, taking in the weight of what they had just been told. Robyn sat back in her chair, white-faced, mumbling through tears. Everything, it was all a lie. Kody stretched out to her, but she drew away hard, her body twisting away from him. The space between them was no longer defined in inches but in betrayal, in shattered trust, in things that could never be taken back. As the courtroom rang with whispers, Meri stuffed her binder, tucking the now vacant envelope within. She felt the gravity of what she had sent forth, and even though the war was not yet won, she had already dealt the blow that would haunt Kody for eternity. The bailiff's voice sliced through the commotion. Court will reconvene shortly. And with that, the session ended. Not with closure, but with the kind of silence that follows an earthquake. Everyone knew something irreversible had just happened. The courtroom was electric, air thick with anticipation, as if walls themselves leaned forward, holding breath for the smack of the gavel. All the secrets, all the lies, all the testimony came down to this moment. Reporters edged forward, pens poised, cameras held outside the doors. Within, Kody Brown slumped, hollow-eyed, as Robyn shook at his side, her hands gripping the crumpled tissues that could no longer contain her tears. Here's your hook. This isn't the end of a trial. This is the moment when truth intersects with power. When a voice of justice will ring louder than all the excuses, all the lies. Bear with me, because the verdict you're about to hear will not only shatter this courtroom, but will forever redefine the Brown family you know. The judge appeared, his robe heavy flowing, his face a grave mask of concentration. The chatter died away the moment he entered. All eyes were on him as he sat down, his gavel inches from his reach. Finality hung thick in the air. Meri sat straight,
binder closed but presence unmovable. She had given her testimony, laid the evidence before the court, dismantled the fiction Kody had constructed. Christine's words, Janelle's letters, Leon's testimony, they all still haunted the room, specters that clung to Kody's every breath. The judge cleared his throat, his tone low but sharp. Upon consideration of the testimony, the evidence and statements given, this court has come to a conclusion. The silence was palpable. Kody's fingers dug into the edge of the table, his knuckles white, his body leaning forward, as if in need of a lifeline. Robyn wept silently, her face in her hands, mascara running down her cheeks. Meri didn't budge. She didn't flicker an eyelash. She simply watched. This is the cliff edge, where you peer over because you know a life is going to be altered forever. Don't glance away now, because this is the moment everything shatters. The judge spoke on, his voice measured. The facts reveal a pattern of dishonesty, financially, of favoritism, and of neglect that cannot be ignored. Mr. Brown, your behavior has broken the trust of those around you, and as sworn to, caused irreparable damage to your family. The words impact like sledgehammers. Kody lets his eyes drift closed, slowly shaking his head, muttering to himself, "No, no, no." The judge spoke in a louder voice. This court is not to find you criminally liable, but it is to recognize the truth, record it and make their accountability. So it is the order of this court that Meri Brown's accusations are confirmed. Gasps shook through the audience, a ripple of whispers spreading like flames. Reporters frantically jotted down notes, already writing headlines that would spread across the country. Kody slammed his fist on the table, his voice cracking into desperation. This is not justice. This is an ambush. The gavel of the judge cracked loudly. Order, Mr. Brown. You had every opportunity to give your side. The evidence will speak for itself, and not excuses. Robyn shrieked, her crying now uncontrollable. She grabbed at Kody's sleeve, tugging, shaking him, screaming, "Why did you not tell me? Why did you lie to me too?" Her voice rang out in the courtroom, raw and heartbreaking, and this time no one hurried to offer her consolation. This is the breakdown. The point at which denial no longer protects, at which even the closest friend disintegrates before the truth. Meri then spoke at last, her voice level, nearly gentle but finely sharp in its precision. "For years you shut me up, you made me invisible. But today, Kody, the truth was louder than your falsehoods." Kody shifted toward her, his face flushed, veins swelling in his neck. "You wanted payback, that's all this is." But Meri didn't flinch. She didn't scream. She just said, "No, I wanted to be free, and now I am." The courtroom filled with whispers once more, and the judge banged his gavel again. "This case is over. Court is adjourned." The ring of the gavel was final, snapping, ringing out across the room, like the slam of a door. Robyn fell completely across the table, weeping desperately, muttering desolate snippets of words. "It's all gone. Everything, it's gone." Kody rose slowly, his frame shaking, his eyes searching wildly around the room, as though he were looking for someone, anyone, who still believed him. But no one was left. Reporters' pens scribbled, onlookers shook their heads, and Meri picked up her binder, standing tall. Have you ever witnessed the moment when exactly a man knows he has lost everything? That's what we're seeing now, and it's as chilling as it is conclusive. Outside there was an explosive burst of camera flashes as news of the verdict traveled. Headlines would scream betrayal, devastation, justice, but within, silence was louder. Robyn held on to her tissues, rocking back and forth in her chair, as Kody sat with his head in his hands against the table. He had gone into the courtroom, thinking that he could spin the truth, and that he could charm his way through, as he had done always, but he emerged a broken man, humiliated in front of the world. Meri didn't gloat. She didn't have to. Her triumph was not in celebration. It was in freedom. She glanced once at the gallery, her gaze firm, her expression serene, and then disappeared from the courtroom, taking with her the man who once stopped her from speaking, and now ceased to speak. The door shut behind her, and with it, decades of pain, decades of betrayal. What lay ahead was freedom, an unshackled future from the deceptions of the past. And yet within the courtroom, the vision of Kody and Robyn, one shattered by revelation, the other shattered by betrayal, remained like a ghostly memory. Because here's the reality: verdicts terminate trials, but they do not terminate the fallout. And for the Brown household, the fallout is merely on the horizon. As the camera of your mind pulls back, The question remains, the one that no verdict can ever answer. What happens to a family after its foundation has been revealed as dishonest?